Alrighty, I hope you can hear me. I'm testing sound equipment here. Hope everything's up and running. If you're here on purpose, thanks for coming back. And if you're here by mistake, stick around. Hopefully, you'll find something entertaining here. The whole thing of this channel is just to kind of give me a way to have a diary of stuff I'm doing as I go through the parts of my life that I'm going through. And one of those things to try to keep myself from going completely bonkers and completely bored to death is I take on different hobbies. And in December of last year, I got into some antique radios, and I thought, well, it'd be kind of fun to repair them. So I researched a little bit, and I found myself on eBay, and I bought this radio in front of you now. And we're at the last day and a half of February, and I've got to wrap this up. I try not to spend more time on anything that's not going to produce anything very quickly as far as keeping me from going crazy. And what I meant by that is that this thing I bought it because it was for parts only, and it's a 1937 Crosley radio. And Crosley is a kind of a big name, I guess, out east, and it produced a lot of things. But the one particular branch of this one was they sold radios, and this is a Bakelite and Brown 5-tube hot chassis AM short band radio, and it was the case looks fine. The radio itself is there's the speaker's shot, it's all tore up. Somebody tried to repair it. It's been in the shop apparently a couple of times for other repairs, but you can remember when this thing was built in the mid-1930s. It was the only form of communication from the outside world that you get other than newspaper and word of mouth. I mean, this was really kind of your connection to the world in the mid-30s, which was important. There was a lot of things going on. Germany was being weird, Japan's being weird. There's a lot of stuff going on. Geopolitical things are happening. So, I mean, this device helped keep people informed, also entertained, and the man who operated the company that built Crosley automobiles and radios and so forth, actually had a radio station which is still operating at this time. It's in Wisconsin, been in operation until this day. It was established in the 1920s and broadcast one of the most powerful signals. You could hear the radio broadcast almost around the whole planet at certain times. And everything's right in the atmosphere. But anyway, I bought it because it was his for parts only. I paid more in shipping than I did to pay for the radio. The plastic coating that was on a lot of the radios, wires that were in this radio, including the power cord, had turned to crumbs. And left just bare wires, and of course that's no good. And so with all the other issues that it's from age, it's 80s. This thing's 80 some odd years old. So this is as old as my mom and pops. My pop's been dead for a while, but mom's still around. And anyway, this thing's as old as she is. And this is probably her parents would have listened to this. My grandparents might have been listening to this radio. I don't know the history on this thing. I know it's been out of the shop. It's been kept in pretty good conditions. It's never been put out in the elements or left in the elements of any kind. It's been kept in somebody's office or library or on the shelf somewhere. And it was quite crusty, so I call it the old crusty Crosley. Anyway, I took it all apart. I did a whole lot of stripped it down as far as I could to the frame, and replaced temporarily with dummy capacitors. I'm sure it needs everything replaced. It's as old as it is. The resistors have gone bad. Everything's gone bad inside, including the wiring. So I did replace a lot of wires, but I came to the point where I was having an issue finding replacement bits for it. It's basically it's a defunct type of equipment. It's obsolete, and nobody unless you go to the clubs, there's people out there who work with these things, and I tried to reach out to them. And they're kind of snobby YouTubers, so I don't, you don't get nothing back from those folks, which is fine. I just dug deeper on my own, figured out what I needed, and what I need is I can't get right now. I'm still investigating for parts. I discovered in disassembling it, and one of the IF cans has broke. So anyway, long story short, I've had it for 2 months. It's time to wrap it up. I can't do anything else with it, so I'm going to put this back to the shelf. So I put all the bits back onto the chassis, assembled it all back together, except for I did not put the dial cord back in because those are kind of fragile. I don't want it to get busted. So what I did is I saved everything that I removed. Yeah, let's put that in front of the lens. Everything that I removed, I put in there with some samples of the wires that I replaced and the materials made from. I've got a note of all in a diagram and a sketch of the bits of the radio. Here it is. Anyway, printed off of this. This is pretty much the layout. Did some little markings on it. Anyway, with a note saying what I did to it. And I'm just going to butt it back up, put it all back together again. I just, without harming too much of it, I did what I could. I cleaned the chassis when I had it all broke down to the chassis, and what was cool about it, though, I did learn a lot. That was the whole idea. It was to learn something about it, learn the history. I like history. I like chasing history items and things like that. And radios, to me, is really cool. Without this thing, none of us would have the modern-day communication devices that we have. It all started with this stuff. I mean, this was a decade in after the first mass-produced radios were being put out to the public, and somebody had a station they could broadcast and you could hear it. And it all goes from communication from wire to air. Until before this, the only way you could communicate was through a wire and a little, ancient phone setup. And before that it was telegraph. And so, the idea to be broadcast stuff over the air was important. They used Morse code, for ocean vessels and stuff. And telegraph was a big business that you could get information in almost instantly with those devices. This was just another step in that type of thing, and it's kind of fascinating to me. So, but I discovered things about the industry, and there was a sidelight on TV that was going on at the same time. When this thing came up, there were people already thinking about television, and there was all kinds of ways they were trying to get television built. And there was a young farm boy who had it figured out and had it right up, and because he was of humble beginnings, he had to deal with the corporate people, and there was RCA to deal with, and RCA already had conquered the radio industry. If you made a radio, produced a radio and sold it, you had to give a couple of coins to the RCA company because they had all the patents locked up on the radio. So if you wanted to brand a radio, so there's a lot of, which is just kind of just normal how it goes. Apparently, litigation will get you a long ways when it comes to these things. So anyway, on this chassis, I noticed even this cabinet, this Bakelite cabinet, I've seen other, like Philco, there's another company out there who eventually took over the type building cheap radios and took it away from Crosley, was the Philco company. But this Bakelite cabinet came in different, very similar forms, but the chassis itself, though, would accommodate a variety of different cabinets. It was, you built the chassis. The chassis is very simple. You can jazz it up one way or another, build better speakers and blah blah blah. So you can do all that. But it was kind of a universal chassis. It was a mass-produced thing. And it's very unique. I learned quite a bit about it. Anyway, once it was cleaned up and I'd figured out that I can't replace the parts that need to be replaced in this thing to make it work again, I just put it back together, put notes and everything of what I've done in there with it, seal it up, and then, when I'm gone, or I pass it on to somebody else to do whatever with it, or I fix it myself, I know where I left off. That's what I'll do with it. And move on to something else. Until then, I've got a collection of radios. I'm not going to touch those because I don't know enough. I've got more studying to do. I can learn how to use meters, multimeters, so I can test things. I've got more equipment if I was going to get into it more seriously. you know, I don't know that I will. My attention span's that of a toddler, so it's really bad at my age with my mental conditions and brain power. I have a hard time staying on one thing. It's just the way I've always been. It's always been a problem as far as getting a lot of long-term things done. So right now I'm at a stage in life. I live alone. I'm in the 60s. I'm retired, disabled, so I have to try to find things I can do to keep myself occupied. So I'm not just spending a lot of time staring at the old TV, and these days there's not a whole lot of entertaining on there that I ain't seen already. So just got to find something to do. So the radios are cool. The little radio in the background there, off to your right side here is me filming. Is a 1960, I think it's 63, 62, solid state radio. There's no tubes in it. That's the technology had gone to the point where the radio with the tubes in it was no longer efficient. It took a lot of power to make that AM radio, AM and FM came along. FM was always around, but it was more expensive to deal with, so it didn't always end up in the low-end radios for a long time. And then about the 60s, it's in AM, FMs, and everything, and then it becomes different now. So that's the technology had gone so quickly. And my parents' life and my life, it's just really quick how it goes. It's fascinating. Anyway, that's the end of the crosley project. Hopefully I'll get back to it, make it running, and get it going if I know enough, if I've learned enough, if I'm still alive to do that. Hopefully we can get that done. If not, it'll go on to somebody else. Maybe I helped at least somebody get a head start on it. Anyway, that's what it is. And once again, if you are here on purpose, thanks for coming back. Appreciate it. And if you're here by accident, kind of go look at the other videos I got. Stick around. Maybe we'll have something interesting. If anybody's got a comment, please drop a comment. It's not important. I will probably answer back. I'm not a stuck-up YouTuber and creator yet. I ain't to that point. Ain't that. I've been at it 10 years. I ain't got to that point yet. So anyway, hey, if anything, have a great day and be kind to everyone. Thanks for watching.